Michael Shore once again risked his sanity and potentially his physical well-being by traveling to a Trump rally and talking about that to them about a number of topics, including their belief that Joe Biden is a Satanist. He worships the devil. Now that's a bold claim that requires bold evidence. Let's see what they've got.
You think President Biden believes in God?
No, not at all. He worships the devil.
So I say, so and that's the difference between the two, is that one worships God and one worships the devil. And how do you see that manifested in President Biden?
It's showing.
No, I mean, I guess where do you see the devil worship come out in President Biden?
All over the country, like everywhere. It's everywhere.
So I guess tell me a little bit more. I know you're saying it's all over the country. I'm just curious how like specifically, where do you see like, oh, that's because President Biden worships the devil, that blank?
Child sex trafficking, the schools, kids, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And do you think President Biden's responsible for child sex trafficking?
Yes.
Okay. So, sleepy Joe Biden is apparently moonlight. Maybe that's why he's so sleepy during the day, is he spends all night going out finding kids to traffic, and then he doesn't get his the 8 to 10 hours of sleep that older Americans are encouraged to get, and that's why he's so sleepy all of the time. That's probably what it is. Credit to Michael Shore for really giving that person a chance, digging deep with multiple follow-up questions. If you've ever thought, hey, I kind of like John's content, maybe it'd be fun for him to go to one of these. I couldn't do it. I could not do what Michael Shore did right there. He has a level of patience, and I don't know, he can wait and give people the opportunity. And it took a couple of tries for her to go beyond everywhere, everything, all of it, all is Satan. And then when she finally was required to give specifics, like what do we think all of that is based on? Literally, like she's seen a couple of libs of TikTok tweets. She said, trafficking, schools, kids. That's what it is. That is the evidence that was enough to finally get her to accept the unimaginable, that the president of the United States, who has masqueraded for nearly a century as a devoted Christian, worships the devil himself. Obviously, that requires a lot of evidence to get you to accept something like that. And she's got trafficking, schools, kid. What do you think?
She knows she wants a simple answer, and she knows that is a simple answer. She doesn't know. She didn't do all the reading. Is the worst part. Like, do you realize how little reading you have to do to be one of those QAnon nut jobs, and how much reading they provide for you? Have to. There's such a little portion of QAnon Satanist rabbit hole you need to go down in order to just say back what their dumb talking points are. But also, I want to say, like, what she just said is worse than what you'll see on libs of TikTok. Like, the absolute value of nuttiness and nothingness and insanity on display there, it just outweighs anything you'll see in, like, who is the craziest person with the littlest to say and the littlest to want in society to do at like a Biden rally. There's no one remotely like that. And if they call Bernie like the psycho left winger, who is the craziest person there? They have ammunition to back up their claims, but these people don't. And that's why I say, Michael Shore for Congress, baby. 2020, what is the next one? 4?
Well, sometimes it takes a while for them to count the votes. There's still time. Get out there, count the votes. Count the votes. No, Michael's great. The country would have been better off with him in Congress. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. I have a few more thoughts about the whole why they believe what they believe, but let's go to a little bit more of them on his religion.
A lot of people think he's the most religious president we've had in a long time, the most God-adoring president.
Who thinks that? You've seen polls that say that? I've never seen a poll that says anything about Biden being religious. I just can't imagine that many Democrats really think, or that anyone really even would paint Biden as a Catholic. That strikes me as odd. I don't know where that idea even came from.
Well, he's been a Catholic his whole life, and he still worships in a Catholic church every week.
But in terms of being a religious man, I'm just not buying it. No, sorry.
Like, I want to be clear. I'm an atheist. I don't care whether a politician is religious. I think it would be novel to have an elected official who, like me and like many, many Americans, is not a participant of an organized religion. We don't seemingly have that, or at least there's so much stigma, they can't actually come out and say that for the most part. But if that is important to you, well, Biden goes to church every week for decades and decades and decades. Donald Trump, he once had a bunch of protesters mangled so that he could stand in front of a church and hold a Bible up upside down, which I think is a sign of the Antichrist. But again, it isn't about the reality. So the last point that I want to make on this is, and it's a thing that I have to constantly remind myself of, a bias that I stupidly bring to this sort of thing. And I think a lot of people do. It is the assumption that people believe something for one reason. That belief represents the acquisition of information, an analysis of the information, the context, and a conclusion based on it. And that is not the only reason that people believe things. It's probably not even the most likely reason that people believe things, including you could probably find in my life a lot of things that I believe without good cause. I try not to have that be the case in politics, but for many people, their political beliefs are not based on them doing their best to wade through a lot of information. And if only we could get them more information, then they'd come to the right conclusions. No, very often they will believe things as a symbol that they belong to a certain group, where those beliefs are considered important totems of group membership. It can be based on wanting to feel good. It can be based on pursuing emotional rather than intellectual or rational goals. And I think a lot of people assume that it's just the intellect thing. I think especially a lot of leftists who value rationality, the scientific method, education, including higher education, make that mistake of assuming that we can just provide more information. Also, by the way, not everybody on the left has to do this. When you have like Joe Rogan saying that the solution to bad speech is more speech, because if we just talk it out, then everyone will get the right information and they'll figure it all out. No, that's not actually how people figure things out. And so these people in these videos are demonstrating that they are not basing their worldview on information, and more information is not gonna alter their worldview.
Yeah, I mean, welcome to the party, John. Like, I get it, and it's difficult, and you just proved yourself to be someone who has faith in humanity. And I would say, complicating that, and I guess if I were to augment that, like, there are people who very obviously purport themselves to be, proponents of more speech and getting the right ideas out there, who absolutely are not. Instead, they have a goal. As I said on the show before, politics is discourse in the service of power. And they say the opposite of what they mean, or what they say just to get people to believe that the politician seeking power is on their side. And I think a lot of people, if I were to break down why people believe what they believe, I'd say one, probably their parents. If we're gonna be honest about it, most people believe what they believe because their parents, either because they agree with their parents and they want to be like their parents, or they hate their parents and they don't want to be like their parents. I think more than any of this, that will, and you could prove that clinically, that is gonna inform what you believe over anything else. But the other thing people do is and this is related to why they believe what their parents believe, is they look around and they're like, am I happy right now? That's it. And right now could mean this era or today, if we're just talking about belief. Then they say, well, what are things like right now? And if I'm not happy with how things are right now, I am going to be mad. I'm going to believe that the opposite of what's happening right now. And that's where the political operatives enter in and guide their resentment, their discontent toward a political faction. And that's why you see people like Lindsey Graham going up to Herschel Walker and saying like, I can't wait to have someone like this in Congress. He doesn't want anyone like, no one wants someone like Herschel Walker in Congress, especially if you outline what Lindsey Graham himself says he wants the Congress to do, which is outlaw abortion on a national level. And Herschel Walker has paid for two. If he thinks it's illegal, he would think Herschel Walker is a murderer, no matter how much he asks forgiveness or pretends he's not. So he's already said the opposite of what he believes. And in every story, the Bible included, when people like Lindsey Graham do stuff like that, and people like Donald Trump go in and swoop up supporters based on a lie, that's the bad guy. And that's actually what Satan does, if we're gonna use their words and their framing. So the more satanic people are the ones who provably are saying the opposite of what they mean for power. That is the definition of evil, and that is the MO of the Republican Party.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.